We're going to continue in the series Public Enemy number 1. Understanding the adversary, and this is going to be part 3. And so, we've gone through quite a bit to this point, this being the 3rd teaching. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a review so that we can remember, bring back what we've already gone through, what we've already learned. I'm not going to reteach anything, so I apologize if I brush over certain things. We always have question answer at the end, so definitely if there's something I go over in the beginning that's kind of fast, take me back there and I'll be happy to go a little deeper into it. But the first thing we did was looked at who the enemy is, right? We looked at Satan, and the word is to attack, or to be an adversary, or to resist. Comprised of the 3 Hebrew letters, sin, tet, nun. And remember the sin, the difference between the sin and the shin was the fact that the sin has a vowel pointing over the left side, so it's pronounced with the s sound versus the sh sound. And remember, we kind of went over in another teaching when we taught about the heart, the shin, and how that letter shin was all about guarding. And that letter was about, and really equals teeth, and how Yahweh acts as a guard against. And so it's interesting that the other side of that sound, not the shin, but the sin, is in the word for adversary, or Satan. And we talked about the tet, which is the snake, the sign of the snake, and the nun being seed. And so we know that at the end of the day that he is an adversary against, and his whole entire mission is to put his throne above Yahweh's. To put his throne above Yahweh's. And so we kind of set up what we wanted to understand going throughout this teaching. And the first 3 bullets we've gone through. We're going to go through more of the 3rd, and we're going to get into the 4th one, which is nice and easy. But just understanding the adversary, we first went through what and who he is. And this is where I'm going to ask for some feedback, because now you have the answers to some of these questions. We can go to the simple answers. So what is he? That's really a question, and y'all really do have to answer it. He's the adversary, but what is he? I'm a person. He's a messenger. He is a messenger, right? So he's a messenger or angel, right? He can go before the throne just as all the other messengers do, right? We went into Job, where all the sons of man went before the throne of Elohim. And included in that number was who? Satan, right? Why? Because he's a messenger. He went with the other messengers, right? We talked about what his objective was. What was the simple answer of what his objective is? Y'all remember that?
To destroy. To steal, rob, and kill. Set up systems.
So his entire thing was putting his throne above Yahweh's, right? That means everybody else is below him. It's to worship, to receive worship. His entire goal was, you want me and us to worship man. How about this? Man will worship me. You will worship me. And so Hasatan's entire goal, his mission in life, his objective, is to put his throne above Elohim's. And this goes way back, so I don't expect anybody to remember this, because some of y'all weren't even here. But I did a message on understanding what worship is. The Hebrew word for worship relates to bowing down or bringing yourself low. And so if you bring yourself low, then that is making whoever's above even higher. That's a form of worship. That is what the word worship means to bring oneself low, to prostrate. Okay? And so in that understanding then, if his goal is to place his throne above Yahweh's, then in essence he's saying, I want everybody to worship me. So that's everything that sets in mode, everything. That's why he walks to and fro, because, and we're going to get into that a little bit more about our place in this whole thing. We're going to get into a little bit more because now we're understanding his who he is and what he is. We're also beginning to understand his objective. Last time I spoke, we got into the other piece, which is what is his authority level. And we're going to dive deeper into that part. But one of the things that we spoke about in his authority is that he deals with what's there, right? That he does not have the ability, he's not a creator, he's not the creator, right? Remember that he's not the equal and opposite of Elohim. He is not the equal to and can do everything, and he's the evil and Yahweh's the good, and he's the bad and Yahweh's the good. No. He's the love, he's the hate and Yahweh's the love. Nope. He's a messenger. He was created. And so in understanding that, he deals with what's there because he is not a creator. He is a creation, right? So he deals with what's there. We went through how even in Peter, he dealt with Peter, and Yeshua spoke directly to him in Peter and said, get behind me, Satan. Because at that time, Peter wasn't going to, turn on Yeshua, so he couldn't use him for that, right? He used Judas for that, right? But what was in Peter was the willingness to go to war for his master. And so he used that. He used that, and in using that, he only could deal with what was already there, right? And so we are also understanding his inability to do certain things, because we have always been taught and brought up that, oh, you stomp on the devil's head and all of this other kind of stuff, right? And so all the time, the devil is just this omnipresent being that's talking to everybody, messing with everybody, and bothering everybody. Well, the other thing we talked about is that his level of authority is limited because he is not omnipresent, right? We talked about that. He's not in more than one place at one time. He's a messenger, so he is able to move to and fro between the heavenlies and the earth right now, as of now, as he sees fit. And we see that happening. We talked about that as well. We talked about even with when it came to Moshe's body, that Michael came and fought against him. And we talked about some of the ways that we interact or call ourselves interacting with the enemy, right? Where we don't rebuke Satan, right? We don't rebuke Satan. Yahweh rebukes Satan, right? And so even Michael said, Yahweh rebuke you, Satan, right? He didn't say, I rebuke you, Satan. He said, Yahweh rebuke you. So only Yeshua, only Yahweh can rebuke the enemy. Why? Because he's his enemy. He's his adversary. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more as well on today as we continue in his level of authority. We also talked about his inability to his inability to see and know the future. Right? His inability to see and know the future. Now, we did say, and I'll make this point clear, and I'll make this point clear again. He tries to create the future to be what he wants it to be, right? And he also tries to predict the future, right? That's when we went through the whole thing with Peter. We talked about how at some point Satan figured out what the plan was. But at another point, we could tell that he didn't know what the plan was. He didn't know that Yeshua was coming to die on the stake, sinless, thus allowing death to be conquered. Didn't know that. And now he has the power. That's what gives him the powers, because now death is supposed to be for sin, right? But this payment of death is now being paid without sin. And so he didn't get that quite yet. And when he got it was when he started trying to figure out how to stop it from happening. That's when Peter's like, oh no, we're not going to let you die. Get behind me, Satan. Next thing, Peter cutting the man's ear off so he can't go back and tell him. Yeshua's like, nope, I'm putting it back on. You go do what you got to do. Because it was supposed to happen. But Hasatan is trying to figure out now, oh man, I can't let this happen. I've been trying to kill him. But now I realize I can't kill him. I got to get him to do something wrong before I kill him. I can't just kill him. He got to do something wrong, and then he's mine, right? And so we also talked about those who Yahweh covers that he cannot touch without permission. Right. And we saw that also because even with Yeshua, he said to Peter, he said the enemy desires to sift you as wheat. He said, but I prayed for you, right? And so we also see that with Job. He went and had to get what? Permission. Had to ask. And Yahweh looked at him and said, oh, have you tried my servant Job? And remember we talked about that being that rhetorical question in the fact that you have here, the next thing that happens is Hasatan starts rattling off all the ways that Job is protected. Why? Because he tried. Yahweh wasn't ignorant of that fact. He wasn't making some random suggestion. Hasatan was trying to get to him, right? And so as we now go through, we're going to jump on into where we ended off on last time. And so still diving into his authority level, because now what I want you to begin to look at is we've looked at this wrong for a long time. Everything that's going wrong in our life was the enemy, right? And so we've looked at it wrong. We've given him the wrong type of authority, which means that we have put ourselves in the position that we're preparing for the wrong fight, right? And so I came up with this little example. And so think about this. Think about this for a second, y'all. If I am an athlete and I get this call that says, look, we're playing some football. The prize is $50,000. And so we want you to come play with us. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got it. Let's do this. So I go on the football field. And I'm practicing throwing. I'm throwing the ball 75 yards down the field. And for all of you non-football fans, that is 3/4 of the entire field, right? It's 100 yards. And so I'm just, I'm just airing the ball out. 75 yards down the field. Man, I got my arm right. So, then I get somebody else to throw the ball to me. And since some athletes like to catch footballs with 3 fingers, I'm going to practice catching with 2. And so I'm catching them sideline toe drags, 2 fingers, right? Catching them all. I'm getting them 2 fingers. And then, some people like to try to snatch the ball, so I'm learning how to tuck it real tight. Everybody's hitting at the ball, so I'm not going to fumble, right? All of this preparation I'm doing. And I got it. And I get there that day, and it's not football, it's football. What the world? They playing soccer, man. What in the world? So, this round ball, if I'm the goalie, I can try to throw it, but it just ain't working the same way. And so instead of getting 75 yards, I'm throwing the ball like 20. Because I didn't prepare for the right fight. And oh, by the way, I can't tuck that ball because it's illegal to pick it up. I can't just grab it and put it under my arm and start running. I've been preparing for the wrong fight. And so all of that I've done, and I'm catching the ball with 2 fingers, I got to hit it with my head. Can't touch it. I ain't did nothing with my feet. I don't know how to do. I don't know what to do. So all of that preparation, I've prepared for the wrong fight. And so, if we begin to understand simple things like that, then we can understand how to prepare ourselves. Because again, we've been preparing ourselves for the wrong enemy. And so, before I go too far into that, one of the things in understanding his level of authority is recognizing his hand, right? Recognizing his hand. And if you can see what's in that hand up there, recognizing his hand. And so don't take it from me, let's go to the scripture. Mark chapter 13, and in order not to, I always say the same thing. Take notes, go back, read everything. It'll be on YouTube. Read it all. But I'm gonna skip just a little bit because I've got a lot of verses, a lot of reading here, okay? And so I'm gonna skip just a little bit to get to the points that I want you to see. Okay, so recognizing the enemy's hand. Let's go to Mark chapter 13. And first we're gonna read verse 5. And that's gonna help us understand where we're at. And then we're gonna skip down to verse 20 and read from 20 to 23. Okay, so Mark chapter 13, verse 5. And it reads, "And Yeshua began to say to them, take heed that no one leads you astray." Now, if somebody says to you, take heed that no one leads you astray, what's the automatic assumption? That somebody's going to try to lead you astray.
Right.
Otherwise, it's pointless for that person to say that. Right? And so now let's go to verse 20 and read down to 23. Verse 20 reads, "And if the master had not shortened those days, no flesh would have been saved. But because of the chosen ones whom he chose, he shortened the days. And if anyone then says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or look, there, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets shall rise and show signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. And you take heed. See, I have forewarned you of it all." I have forewarned you. I prepared you, right? I'm preparing you. I don't want you to be practicing your football drills and we playing soccer. I'm preparing you. Matthew chapter 24. And this is a little bit of a mix, and I tried to break it up in understanding the level of authority and understanding where his future lies as well. So this has got a little bit of overlap. I kind of went back and forth on what heading I put it under, but I think understanding his authority and recognizing where he is and where he is not is what I really want you to key into. That's what I really want you to key into, recognizing the enemy's hand, right? So again, we're in Matthew chapter 24. We're going to read verses 11 and 12. And then we're going to go to verses 22 and read through 26. So again, Matthew chapter 24, verse 11 and 12 is where we'll start. And we'll skip down to verses 22 through 26. Verse 11 reads, "And many false prophets shall rise up and lead many astray. And because of the increase in lawlessness, the love of many shall become cold." Lawlessness. Verse 22, and if those days were not shortened, no flesh would have been saved. But for the sake of the chosen ones, those days shall be shortened. If anyone then says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe. For false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, even if possible, even the chosen ones. See, I have forewarned you. So if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe. Do not believe. He's preparing us for something. Now let's go to 2 Thessalonians. We're going to go to 2 Thessalonians and look at more of this leading astray. And we're going to go to the 2nd chapter, 2 Thessalonians, 2nd chapter, 3 and 4. Then we're going to read from 8 through 12. 3 and 4, then read 8 down through 12. 3 and 4, 8 through 12. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first. And the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim. That's that worship. He wants to exalt himself above all that is called Elohim, that is worshipped, so that he sits as Elohim in the dwelling place of Elohim, showing himself that he is Elohim. And so let's now go to verse 8, and we're going to read 8 through 12. Verse 8. And then the lawless one shall be revealed, whom the master shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and bring to naught the manifestation of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of who?
Satan.
Of Satan. This means that lawlessness has something to do with Satan, right? So let's keep reading. With all power and signs and wonders of what?
Falsehood.
Falsehood, non-truth. And with all deceit of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth, right? In order for them to be saved. And for this reason, Elohim sends them a working of delusion, for them to believe the falsehood, in order that all should be judged who did not believe the truth, but have delighted in the unrighteousness. And so here we have Satan uses lawlessness in order to try to achieve his ultimate goal. So now if we understand that Satan is not this one individual that comes and taps each and every one of us on the shoulder and tries to talk bad things into our head, that's no longer what we're looking for. Now what we need to be on the lookout is for this messenger who is, number one, not bound by time as in age, right? And so he can be in the garden, right? And he's still alive today because he wasn't made to die a mortal death. Right? And as we get into the next part, we'll see that it takes a little extra to get rid of messengers. Because they were not made to die like us in fleshly form. And so with him, now understanding that, number one, he knows and understands what's in this book, right? Because it's here. So just like we can read it, he was there when they was writing it. Right? Remember, they write about Job, they write about him too. And so he was there, right? So understanding that now he is setting up ways and has thousands of years to figure out how to trap people. So lawlessness doesn't come saying, hey, I'm lawless. It comes with signs and wonders and oohs and ahs and images and beasts and horns and heads and authority, all kind of stuff, right? That is by design. It's not by accident. False prophets don't come saying, hey, I'm a false prophet, believe me. False messiahs don't come saying, hey, I'm a false messiah, believe me. No. No. Lawlessness doesn't come saying, I'm lawless. It comes saying, follow me as I follow Christ. and I will lead you there. You don't need that book. I got you. I know the book, so we good. I know the book, you know me, so let's go. Hava it looks good. It is good. You'll only be as wise as he is, that's all. Knowing good and evil. So all of this stuff that he comes with, these schemes and these wiles of the enemy, we have to begin to recognize his hand, right? And like my favorite example, it ain't messing with the microphones and causing them to squeak and run out of battery power like this one just did. That was not the enemy. Don't want me to teach this message, so he messed my battery up. No, doubt it. Doubt it. And so let's now go into, we've gone through Thessalonians. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 12. We're going to read verses 7 through 9 in Revelation. And understanding, again, we're going to talk a little bit later about more directly his future. But right now, I want us to stay in the place of recognizing his hand. And so far, we see that he's lawless, that there's delusion involved, that he's trying to trick folk, and that the elect are included in that, right? And so chapter 12, verses 7 through 9. And it reads, "And there came to be fighting in the heaven. Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon. And the dragon and his messengers fought, but they were not strong enough, nor was a place found for them in the heaven," key phrase, "any longer." Any longer. Right? And so we've already read where Hasatan goes before the throne. He goes back and forth at this point. But something's going to take place in the future. Verse 9. "And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old." We know who we're talking about, and he makes no mistake because it is plain and obvious right here. He says, "The serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in the heaven, Now have come the deliverance and the power and the reign of our Elohim, and the authority of his Messiah, for the accuser of our brothers who accused them before our Elohim day and night has been thrown down. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their witness. And they did not love their lives to the death. Because of this, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has little time." We get to this point, he's going on a rampage. He knows he has little time. And so all of history to this point has been a setup. It's been a setup. He's setting this thing up. Remember, he started trying to get back at Yahweh at the creation of Adam and Hava. This has been going on for a long time. This has been going on. This is why we have to be able to recognize his hand. Because I'll take you to one other part of Revelation where even Yohanan began to bow down to a messenger. And that messenger said, "Do not bow, for I am a servant, just as you are. But worship the Messiah." And how you will know the Messiah is by the spirit of prophecy. In him understanding, in us knowing that should tell us something. That even Yohanan wasn't bowing down to a messenger just to be doing it, but there were times when he was entertaining Messiah. There were times when he was being taken through his vision of revelation by the Messiah. He thought he was looking at the Messiah. He thought he was listening to the Messiah, but he wasn't at that point. So if even Yohanan Even Yohanan, I don't think that was there by accident, but even Yohanan had to get corrected in who the Messiah really is. We know we've got to be on our P's and Q's. We got to be on top of it. And so, understanding the hand of the enemy, one of the things that, I spoke this message before, but the kingdom suffering violence, being that there are so many things that are attempting to violate the kingdom of Yahweh, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Elohim, that there are so many things that the enemy is putting in place to violate. The number one thing is he's doing violence against the Torah, right? What is that? Lawlessness. Lawlessness. And if I can get it to look good, I can get the people who want to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to do this, then I've got them in my lawless hand. I've got them captured. And so let's now look at it from this respect. Distinguishing now between the enemy and the inner me. Because now in recognizing the things that he's put in place, we have to understand the innate sin that still resides within us. And then maybe we won't run around saying every time some bad thought comes up, that was the devil. Every time something bad happens, that was the devil. If I think something bad, it's the devil. If I do something bad, it's the devil. Therefore, I have no reason to look inside of myself. Therefore, I have no reason to correct me. I have no reason to do what we're about to read in Genesis 4 and 7. Let's go there. Genesis 4 and 7. Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. And it reads, "Is it not, if you do good, you are to be accepted? And if you do not do good, toward the door is a sin. He is lying, and toward you is his desire, and you must rule over him." Now, Satan can't be in all of our back pockets messing with us. But what can be? Sin. Sin. Sin is what's with us all the time. Sin is what we fight against. What is sin? Transgression of the law. Breaking of the law. Right? Going past, transgress. Right? To trans, you go beyond. Right? So let's go to Psalms 51 and 5. Let's go to Psalms 51 and 5 and look at how David put it. Psalm 51 and 5 says, "See, I was brought forth in crookedness, and in sin my mother conceived me." So way back in the garden, we see that sin's goal is to take control of us. And so if sin's goal is to take control of us, we now have what? An option. Y'all know why we have that option? Because Adam, more so than Hava, Adam ate of both good and evil. And so now what? We now have to distinguish between the two. Didn't always have to do that. What makes that so difficult? Because sin's goal is to master us. Sin's goal is to get us to go where it wants us to go. The flesh wars against the spirit, right? And so if sin is transgressing the law, then that basically says that our flesh is trying to constantly get us to break the law. And once you break the law and you understand that you break the law, you go back, now you can be covered, right? But what happens when we break the law, we transgress the law, and then we say to ourselves that we have not transgressed the law? It becomes iniquity. Because iniquity is not simply transgressing the law or crossing over crossing the line. Iniquity is moving the line and saying that this sin is not actually sin. So now if we understand that, now we look at the bigger schemes of the enemy. And we look at the way that he commercializes and advertises sin to look good. And so every church has had something on Saturday similar to a fish sale, a bake sale, a pork chop sale. I mean, how much more wrong can we get? On the Sabbath, barbecue sale. And so, well, this is the church, it's for a good cause, blah, 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 da, 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 da. All of these things that look innocent. Why? Because the scheme is not to look ugly and tattered and bruised and broken. It's signs and wonders. And as Rabbi always says, when you see the sign, you should wonder, right? And so when they see it, it's like, ooh, ah. But we should recognize lawlessness because it's a system. That's how the enemy is operating. And so when our flesh wants what looks good because the advertisement made it look so delicious. The advertisement made it look so wonderful, so enjoyable, that now, remember, the enemy is not down here trying to convince everybody to do it, but guess what he is doing? He's running an organization that has an assignment. And that assignment is to get every single person, as many people in particular, those who call upon the name of Yahweh, those who call upon the name of the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Yishak. He wants those people to be lawless. Why? Because your sins have separated you from Elohim. And if I can get you separated from him, I'm getting him. I'm getting him back. You're a pawn. We are pawns. We're pawns. We're not his enemy. Yahweh is. And that's why he said, vengeance is mine. That's why he said that. It's his. We out there trying to fight Satan, our little selves. That ain't even no David and Goliath type situation. Because Yahweh was with David. And so let's go to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 30. Because there's some things now that we're looking at because we've got to learn how to master sin. And it ain't always Satan that stops us from mastering it. But it's something inside of us because we're born in sin, shaped in iniquity, right? And so let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 30. Let's first read verses 1 through 3. And then we're going to jump down to verses 11 through 16, okay? So Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. And it shall be, when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the nations where Yahweh your Elohim drives you. Are we in all the nations? Yes. 2, and shall turn back to Yahweh your Elohim and obey his voice according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and with all your being, you and your children. Let me pause there. Are we attempting to turn back to the commands of Yahweh with all of our heart and to bring those to our children? Yes. But look what else is saying to us. Verse 3, then Yahweh your Elohim shall turn back your captivity and shall have compassion on you, and he shall turn back and gather you from all the people where Yahweh your Elohim has scattered you. And so if we do that, then our reward is great. The reward is we've been scattered and now he's gathering us back together. But it doesn't come without decisions. Why? Because in verse 1 it says, the blessings and the curses which I set before you today. Why? Because Adam ate of good and evil. Now you have to choose. And it's not an easy choice. It's not one that you just look at and say, oh yeah, that one. But it's a tough decision. Why? Verses 11 through 16. Verses 11 through 16, same chapter. For this command which I am commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor is it too far off. It is not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend into the heavens for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. Nor is it beyond the sea to say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart to do it. See, I have set before you today life and good, death and evil. This is Yahweh saying you got this on a regular basis, a decision to make. Of life and good, death and evil. Yahweh gives us that choice. Why? Because we ate of the tree. 16, in that I am commanding you today to love Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings. And you shall live. As a result, you shall live. Those doing the Torah live by the Torah. Right? Shaul didn't disagree with the Torah. He didn't disagree with Yahweh's words. And you shall live and increase, and Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you in the land which you go to possess. Now let's go to Romans. Romans chapter 7. Romans chapter 7. We're going to read from verse 17 down to 25. Romans chapter 7, verse 17 down to 25. Shaul understood something, and he's helping us to understand this. And he's not saying this out of weakness. He's saying this out of reality. Because we've gotten so off track preparing for the wrong football game. We've gotten so off track trying to fight Satan that sin is slapping us up and down the field. Verse 17, chapter 7, verse 17. And now, it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwells no good. For to wish is present with me, but to work the good I do not find. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. But the evil I do not wish to do, this I practice. And if I do that which I do not wish, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me. I find therefore this law, not the Torah, this law, that when I wish to do good, that the evil is present with me. The law of sin is there. And in verse 21, I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do good, that the evil is present with me. For I delight in the Torah of Elohim according to the inward man. Uh-oh, did Shaul just say he delighted in the Torah? Wow. 23, but I see another Torah in my members. There's another one, not the Torah of Yahweh. There's another Torah in my members battling against the Torah of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the Torah of sin, which is in my members. Wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? Thanks to Elohim through Yeshua Messiah, our master, who is going to deliver us from this body of death. So then, with the mind, I myself truly serve the Torah of Elohim. With my mind, I serve the Torah of Elohim. but with the flesh, the Torah of sin. The Torah of sin. So we got to stop fighting the wrong enemy. So Hasatan has put a program out that says, hey, don't fight against the Torah of flesh. Fight against the Torah of your mind. Don't fight against the Torah of your members. Fight against the Torah of Elohim. And by which he is creating lawlessness. That's what we read about. That's what we read about. He's creating lawlessness. It all goes back to him. Yeshua made that perfectly clear to us. And so what is our job? We've got to figure out which direction to go in. And so when Yahweh says to us that I set before you both of these things, that means that we have to learn how to recognize it. If we recognize it, then we now understand, oh, you know what? I've got to distinguish between the schemes of the enemy and stuff that I need to deal with within myself. Why? Because then I prepare for the right fight. I prepare for the right fight. I'm going to be ready for the enemy. Why? Because I'm not falling into that lawless trap. Just because he says that it's okay. Just because everybody says it's okay. Just because the world thinks it's okay. Sin is lawlessness. Sin is lawlessness. So if we really begin, instead of thinking the enemy is tripping all of the cords and cables within our church, if we think that, well, maybe one of his plans is for us to ignore the Torah, thus make us lawless, then we can begin to look for the right thing. And now what do we do? Because all of us are going through, some of us newer than others, but all of us are going through a transition where we are trying to get rid of lawlessness and live by Torah, which is our righteousness. Which is our righteousness. The Torah of Yahweh is our righteousness. And now, what do we need to do? If we can focus inside and do as Yahweh told Cain and master sin. We master sin, and then the schemes of the enemy are powerless against us. And so then we understand that his authority is limited. And no, he's not tapping us on the shoulder. No, he's not talking to us all the time. No, sometimes we need to address ourselves, because those thoughts were from us. And Shaul agrees with that. And so let's look at his ending. Let's look at his future. Let's go to Revelation chapter 20. We're going to read verses 1 through 3 and then 7 through 10. Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 3, then skip down to 7 through 10. And it reads, And I saw a messenger coming down from the heaven, having the key to the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand. And he seized the dragon and the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So that's for everybody who think you ain't got the key to the pit or a big chain. We ain't read about the chain yet. Oh, we did read about the chain. Then everybody who, I bind you, Satan, and send you back to where you came from. No. 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 Leave him alone and get yourself together. Because right here, a messenger had to come down from heaven in order to do it. We read that. This is like the third place that we've read where a messenger had to deal with Hasatan. So let's stop. Verse 2. And he seized the dragon and the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the pit of the deep and shut him up and set a seal on him, so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that he has to be released for a little while. Verse 7. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray again, which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose numbers is as the sand of the sea. And they came up over the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the set apart ones and the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of the heaven and consumed them. And the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are, and that had already happened in earlier reading. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. Yahweh will defeat Satan. Let's work on us. His future is Yahweh will defeat him. Let's work on us. And so, hopefully what we've gotten from this is a better understanding of the enemy, of the adversary, of his role in the grand scheme of things. And again, I'll mention the example that I used with understanding the CEO of a company. And one that I used is Pepsi. And I don't know the guy, so CEO of Pepsi watching this YouTube, man, I'm just, my bad. I don't think you the devil, nothing like that, but I don't know you. But at the end of the day, that CEO wants each and every one of us to drink a Pepsi. None of us has ever had a conversation with him where he said, hey, don't get the Coke, get the Pepsi. However, we see his advertisements. We see his presence in the restaurants, in the grocery stores, at the checkout line in the grocery store, where they're nice and cold and in 20 ounces, right? We see his hand when you go to fill up your gas tank and you just say, let me go in and use the bathroom. Oh, there's a Pepsi, right? And so the product is available wherever you want it. But the man making it happen don't have to be there for you to buy it. So Satan don't have to be tapping us all on the shoulders to make us buy lawlessness. So if we're spending all of our times looking for the red horn and the red cape, we missing it. And we buying sin every chance we get. Paying double for it. Exchanging it for other sin. Passing it to our children. I'm telling you that one of the and this is just a sidebar, but it grieves my heart. And I know it's people who just don't know any better, but out of everything, to see someone doing things that I know are against Yahweh completely is one thing, but it grieves my heart to see parents teaching children that. Every time I see it, a kid, oh, here's a piece of bacon. It grieves my heart. Because that means that we are teaching lawlessness. We're teaching lawlessness. And so, hopefully we've gotten a much better idea of really what public enemy number one is all about. Better understanding. Amen. Amen.